In recent years, it's become increasingly difficult to deny how the left is riven with anti-Semitism. Some cases are overt, but others are rather more subtle, and they usually revolve around Israel. Now look, it's obviously fine to air legitimate complaints about Israeli policy, and it's also fine to voice sympathy for the situation of the Palestinians, grave as it is. But what should set alarm bells off is how Israel, the only Jewish state in the world, holds such a monopoly on left-wing hatred. Try to name another state on planet Earth that arouses leftist ire like Israel does. It's completely impossible, no matter how questionable that place is. It's not Russia, not China, not Iran, not Saudi Arabia, not North Korea, not Pakistan, Somalia, Venezuela, Syria, Afghanistan, Qatar, South Africa, Uganda. Nowhere. Nowhere else is even close. It's only the Jews who arouse that ire, despite the fact that their state is by far the most liberal in that region, one of the most liberal on earth. And all their hardline and repressive policies have been provoked by the aggression of their neighbours. Neighbours who are rooted in misogyny and homophobia, and who have a written manifesto of racist genocide. You'd think that would have provoked the left to oppose them, if they had any moral or ideological consistency or honesty at all. But it hasn't. They've sided with the racist, misogynistic homophobes against the liberals. And they've done it to the exclusion of every other totalitarian despotism on earth. And neutral observers can't help noticing that the only real feature that distinguishes Israel from all those other issues is that it's the only state run and populated by Jews. It's also difficult to take the left's denial seriously when some of their less reserved members, like David Cooper, a Labour Party member from Nottinghamshire, post sentiments like this. I call for the complete annihilation and extermination of every Jew on the planet. The Jew is worse than Black Death, worse than Ebola virus. The Jew represents pure evil. We need to eliminate this infection. Sentiments like this are far more common on the left than you'd like to think. But most qualify their views in less alarming prose. They do, however, frequently air the same ideas of a Rothschild-backed world conspiracy that inform the entire belief system of Adolf Hitler. The only concession they make is to lean on the term Zionist rather than Jew. But being that 2/3 of all Jews on planet Earth live in Israel, that's hardly a great defence. After all, anti-Zionists have to believe, by definition, that every people on planet Earth should be allowed their own state. Everyone except the Jews. These are also the same people who claim that any criticism of individual Muslims instantly qualifies as Islamophobia. But their own hatred for the majority of Jews on planet Earth has nothing at all to do with anti-Semitism. And I'm sorry, but that isn't a very persuasive argument. Now, the latest figures to pop their heads over the parapet on this issue are the ice cream manufacturers Ben & Jerry and the Irish novelist and outspoken Marxist Sally Rooney. All have effectively imposed sanctions to bar their products from Israel, but not from anywhere else, naturally. Ben & Jerry justified their decision by saying that they were simply following international law. Except the UN has not declared the Israeli state to be illegal, only that their occupation of Palestine is illegal. Now, firstly, this is simply a failure to exercise their own judgment. And the UN might not be the authority to follow in this sort of case. Want an example? Well, in the 1970s, the UN made an identical declaration. They declared the Vietnamese invasion and occupation of Cambodia to be illegal. And because of that, the UN, along with many other bodies, spent 20 years defending, supporting and funding the Khmer Rouge, a group of genocidal lunatics. And now, they, Ben and Jerry, and Rooney, are effectively siding with Hamas, a group of genocidal lunatics. It's a good idea to learn from the past rather than to repeat its mistakes. But to do that, you actually have to study it. And that's more difficult than smugly virtue signalling from your mansion in Vermont. Of course, these fools, and Sally Rooney, have been lionised by the left because they hate Israel with a venom which is, to most normal human beings, out of all proportion. Both have effectively supported the boycott, divestment, sanctions movement, which considers Israel a uniquely terrorist and apartheid state, despite the fact that 400 Palestinian Arabs have been members of the Israeli parliament. That seems a peculiar sort of apartheid to me. The spokesman of Boycott, Divestment, Sanctions says that their goal is to upend the Jewish state, thereby denying the right to self-determination of the Jews. And all the while, they'll continue spluttering that they're not remotely anti-Semitic. If you've enjoyed this film, please like and subscribe. And if you're interested in these topics, I've written 2 books which go into them in enormous detail. They're called The Tyranny of the Left, and they're available on the links below. Please feel free to pick them up and let me know what you think. Thank you.